Okay, we're bringing Chip up to the mounting block, and one thing I actually demand of all my horses is to walk up and to stop where they're supposed to stop. I see people bringing their horses up and then they turn around this way and then the horse's hind end goes out and then the horse won't stand and then they move the block. I don't move the block, I move the horse to the block. I insist on my horses standing. I don't want them walking off. I see professional trainers or so-called professional trainers trying to get on their horse and the horse is walking off or even maybe trotting off. So I just go ahead and get on. And if he were to walk off, I'd back him up. So I just want him to stand here and just be relaxed to start with. Ask him to drop his head. So I've got what's called, in Western terminology, a training fork on. That's the rings. It's also called a running martingale in English, under English tack or English terms. And what I'm doing here with just raising my hand here is I'm cueing him to drop his head. When I raise my hand, when that curb chain just gets a little bit of pressure on it, then that's a signal for him to drop his head. This is a correction bit, which is a mild bit in his mouth, and I'll show you what the bit looks like at the end of the video. But this also has a port in it, which it kind of relieves the tongue on the pressure on the tongue, just a little bit of pressure on his bars, and then maybe just a little bit on the roof of his mouth. And these shanks also work independently. I can move this shank while that one is not moving over there. So if I need to lift a shoulder, if I want to lift this shoulder, I can do it. If I want to lift the other shoulder, or if I just want to use both hands, and I can drop his head that way. Now, the first thing I do after I walk off is kind of what I call a pre-flight check. I'll bring his head around to the point of his shoulder, a 90-degree angle, expecting to stop. So I do that both directions. So if he got a little itch there, I'll let him itch. Bring his head around both directions. I want him to just stand there. Once he gives, not pulling on me, once he's soft, then I give it back to him. Ask him to move off. I just kind of fan a little bit, just to create a little bit of energy. Now, I'll move him over where the camera can see him. I'll bring that head around. The next thing I do is I'll bring the hind quarter around. I'll ask for one step, and then I'll bring the front end over. And I'll ask for one step. Now, if I were to get resistance, say on this side or the other side, then that's kind of where I would start working today. So he just kind of walked over just to get his balance. He didn't walk off. Now if he were to walk forward, I would stop him and back up. Now the way I stop him is I press with my spur, whoa, and then I press with my spur again to back up, and I ask for one step at a time. Now the way I get that, or the way I train them to do that, is when I first start riding them after the bucks are out or after they're comfortable with me on their back. It's got a fly over here on it. Is when I stop, I'll lean back, squeeze with my calves, and then spur and say whoa, and then I back up. So to them, whoa means back up. I'll back up every single time I stop. Now that does two things. It gets them on their hindquarters and keeps them balanced, and it teaches them how to get their balance on their own, and it also teaches them, to go on the bit. So see, he's on the bit. Back up, press. He's got a fly over here. Press. I had to cue him there, and release. Press and release. Now the reason I don't use my hands to back him up, now he'll back up, but the reason I don't is like the goal for him is a Western pleasure horse. Western pleasure horse, a lot of times in the lineup, you'll be lining up and the judge will come by and they'll say back. Well, the horse that backs on leg pressure, and you don't have to use your hands, is the horse that might be the determining factor in the class, because that horse is just better trained and more obedient. So I've gone through my pre-flight check and I don't have a whole lot of resistance here. I don't have any resistance really. Now, some of you may say, well, he's swishing his tail and he kind of pins his ears a little bit. Yes, he does. But 6 or 7 months ago, he was kicking at my leg and he was actually bucking, you know, when I did the least little thing that he didn't like. His mind was just totally fried. Now I can just move him around pretty good. He's pretty responsive. And even though those ears are pinned, now he's trying for me. So we got a good thing going. We got a good partnership going.